Have you ever thought, is this just me when struggling to stay organized, start tasks, or manage time? For those of us over 50, these challenges might not be just aging. They could be ADHD hiding in plain sight for decades. I'm Jami Shapiro, host of Grandma Has ADHD, and I'm building a community where your experiences matter. Whether you're diagnosed, questioning, or simply curious, you're not alone. Our Facebook group is filled with vibrant, understanding people over 50 who share their stories, strategies, and yes, even their struggles, with plenty of laughter along the way. Ready to find your people? Join our growing Grandma Has ADHD Facebook community. Please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone, because ADHD doesn't have an age limit and neither does understanding yourself better. Together, we're changing the conversation about ADHD after 50. Come be part of the story. The podcast you're about to hear contains both technical difficulties and explicit conversation. Please ignore the interruptions and listen for the amazing information you will gain. As I like to say, perfect is the enemy of done. Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Grandma Has ADHD. It is Valentine's Day week when we are recording or dropping this episode. And for those of us with ADHD, if you aren't familiar with rejection sensitive dysphoria, Valentine's Day might bring up some, really challenging emotions for us. Rejection sensitive dysphoria means that we feel and perceive rejection much more. I'm just going to use that word because I can't come up with a better one, than the average neurotypical person was. And I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Coach Diane D. She is another one of the many amazing people that I met at the International ADHD Conference. She is a French Canadian from Ontario who is passionate about empowering people to love, accept themselves with whatever brain they have. She was almost 40 when she discovered she had ADHD, and it took almost a decade to find real help. She later learned she is also on the autism spectrum. In 2013, she became a registered therapist and a certified ADHD coach. By 2020, she evolved into a certified sexuality coach and a certified accelerated evolution coach. This equipped her with the tools she needed to coach her clients towards deep healing and a satisfying sex life. Additionally, she has over 30 years of experience studying cultures and religions, and 15 years of experience as an elementary school teacher. I'm going to just put this out there right now so that I don't forget. If you have elementary school aged children or any children listening, this may not be the episode that you want to listen to with them. Back to the introduction. She is well equipped to hold a safe space for people to heal, learn, and grow into their best selves. Welcome, Coach Diane D. That is a mouthful, but what I am learning is it's very typical for my ADHD guests to have a resume that is very impressive. I think we tend to have an imposter syndrome going on, and we feel like the more we achieve, the better we are. But wow. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Jami. I'm really honored to be here. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. Well, like I said, I am so excited. And you are actually, for those of you listening, we're going to be doing interviews with Coach Diane D in two parts. In this part, we're going to talk about Coach Diane D's personal journey with ADHD and how she discovered it and what it looked like in her child and how it impacted her as a mother. And then we're going to go into and also talk about ADHD, its impact on relationships and sex lives. But I recognize that not everybody is in a relationship. And so we're going to have Coach Diane D back to really help those of us who are not in a relationship but want to have fulfilling sex lives. So okay, I just gave you the big intro. So first, tell me how you got here. Give me the Cliff Note version of your experience discovering that you had ADHD.
Okay, so for me, I always knew I was different, and I didn't grow up in a very structured or happy home. So I was on my own a lot. And the one thing that's good about that is that I got to just be myself and create. And I mean, I used to love climbing trees. My dad had made me a swing set. I used to swing and sing all day long if I could. And I would just
Mhm.
think, my brain was always going. I would create things and I would invite the girls from the neighborhood and teach them things and show them the things I created. And like I was always like that, but I understood that it wasn't the way most people were. And the older I got, the more people were like, oh my God, you're driving me crazy. Or why do you never
Mhm.
shut up? Can you ever
Mhm.
stop talking? And so, of course, it really impacted my self esteem. And I became this very sad, suicidal kid. And I went down that journey. Once I turned 12, I mean, I did try to kill myself. And then it was just like doom and gloom through my teens.
Wow.
And then, I'm the typical ADHDer, no boundaries, always just trying to be loved and accepted for who I am, but not even knowing that there's bad people out there. Like I just thought everybody was good, rose colored glasses, see the good, and always looking to find a fun thing. There's always something fun to do, even when everything else is shitty. So, of course, like it became, I think I've been being groped since I'm 8 years old. Like there
Mm.
were things that happened like that. And I didn't understand. I mean, it definitely didn't turn me on. And I just thought that boys didn't have these parts, so they were curious. That was it. I was very innocent about it. It didn't turn me on. I didn't know there was anything wrong with it. So at 18, I was pregnant. And, as a typical teenager with ADHD, not thinking about the consequences of my actions, not knowing to say no, being afraid if I say no, is he going to leave me? And of course, him making me all these great promises, that he never kept.
Mm.
So, of course, so I was pregnant at 18 and moved out of my parents' home to raise my baby and, just kind of lived a more secluded life for a long time. And then at some point, I got married and had more children. And the more responsibility I took on, the more children I had, the more organized I got. Isn't that the
Right.
opposite of most people with ADHD?
No, actually, I've heard that that's a very common experience. We do better when we have more to do. So, you
Yes.
know, and
And
that's
I
why a lot
think,
of us go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, but I think like for me, I was so rigid though in my organization that, I mean, I felt like if one thing got out of place, everything would fall apart. So of course,
Hmm.
like I had to keep a schedule all the time. And I was so energetic. I had more energy because I am the hyper combination type. And
Hmm.
for those who don't know, you can be an um, oh my gosh, the word just
You
left
could
me.
be
An inattentive,
attentive or
an attentive
hyperactive.
where most of the hyperactivity is in your brain and you seem like a daydreamer, or you can be a hyperactive or you can be combined. And I'm the combined type.
So
And
am I.
and mostly had more energy than five people put together most of my life, right?
Okay, so right, I'm also the combined type, Coach Diane D. So keep going because I actually had to interrupt her. There was some noise that was like, anyway, go on.
Okay, so I always had about the energy of five people. So keeping my house in order, like I mean, for a while I was so almost OCD about it. I used to wash all my cans when I came home from the grocery store because I was the kindergarten teacher and I never
Mm,
realized how gross little kids are with their hands in their nose,
mm.
in their pads. So it was like I became a little obsessive about germs for a while, not
I,
consistently, but for a while.
well, I'm actually that way too. And I have learned that OCD and ADHD tend to run in families. I have two ADHD kids and an OCD child, and I definitely have some OCD tendencies. I also, want to talk about the structure because you did mention that you are ADHD, or is it AU ADHD? So you're autistic and ADHD. So the autism may be the part that plays into that needing to have that structured schedule, right?
Yeah, well, yes. And I think too, like if you consider that ADHD is all about interest, either I'm 100% interested or I'm not. I
Yep.
find organizing a house interesting. Like I even did it as a profession for a while. I did hoarder
Mm-hmm.
houses and stuff. I love, love, love cleaning and organizing houses. Like I just love it. Like if I
Right.
go to someone's house and they let me do the laundry or anything, I'm always excited.
Right.
It's crazy,
So
right? Who knows?
So you talked a little bit about ADHD and what your childhood looked like, and
Yeah.
how did you discover that you had ADHD yourself?
So at 19 now I've got a baby, and fast forward, like I said, I ended up getting married when she was 5, having other kids, moving to Alabama to study something that I wanted to study, and through all that, I just always knew I was different. But when I was in Alabama, I met people who really actually saw in me some potential and really developed it. And that's where I learned how to teach. I learned how to do public speaking. I learned how to run a women's group. Like it was really where I got my wings. So that gave me the confidence to move forward. But when I went back to my hometown, I always felt like I was a nuisance or a problem because of the people around me. Our environment, the people around us really matter. So fast forward, like I get a divorce. I go back to school. I'm a teacher. That's when I took my degree in gerontology, and then that didn't work, so I went into teaching. And we're in class and we're studying special needs. This is a special needs class for us. And they start the class with a video. They say nothing about it. And we're watching this video of this mother and this daughter. And it's like me and my kids. I have 4 kids, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's just like me. That's just like my kids and stuff. And at the end of the video, they talk about this as ADHD. And they're talking
Wow.
about it like, oh, wow, me and my kids just have ADHD. Now that there's a name for it, I'm going to go home. I'm going to find somebody who knows about this, and we're going to be fine. We'll know what to do. But it was like there was nobody. I talked to psychiatrists, therapists of all different kinds, counselors, coaches. And back then, like, there wasn't the internet like there is now, right? So it was like I never thought
Mm-hmm.
it was there. I was looking in my area. Nobody even knew what it was. Nobody even said to me it's an executive function malfunction. Like I don't think they even knew. They just kept referring me to books. So I would read parts of books, but the books often had the problems which I was living. I needed something more than that. I needed an explanation. I needed, some ideas. I needed some solutions, which is why I wrote my ebook about ADHD truths and solutions. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
this was like so frustrating for me because now I can see that my kids have something too. And this is the funny thing. They tested one of my children and they never caught it. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
Yeah, in grade 3, because I knew there was an issue. And it turns out when 2 of my kids grew up, and the more I learned about stuff when I became a therapist, the more I realized that I talked with one of them about it, and they said, I've always suspected that since we started learning about ADHD and stuff, because I used to talk with my kids about it, because of course we were having issues, and I was never very good socially, and one of my daughters really maybe 2 struggled there, and I didn't know how to help them because and the thing is this, in my own little world, and I think I'm grateful that in my family there were periods where I was neglected because I really got to build up my own confidence with the things I created and the people I helped. So I was not like so worried about what other people thought with my stuff that I was creating or the things I was thinking of with my kids, but where it impacted me was more what people would think of me as a wife. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
But I think
And
that's my parent dynamic.
I have an interesting question. You mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you came from a home that was not structured and you had to be resilient and think for yourself. Do you think one of your parents had ADHD or autism and that might have impacted the way that they parented and ran the household?
I definitely think so. Looking back specifically, like my dad was a veteran from World War II. He was on the front lines for a few years. So he had PTSD, I'm sure, but they didn't even know about that then. So that was a big factor. And then I'm sure my mom, she might have been both as well, because I look back now and I think of the junk drawers and I think of like how she struggled to get herself up doing things. Like, Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's like my mom's side of the family has a lot of mental health issues, a lot of schizophrenia, lots of bipolar, so yeah, I think it does come from there. And maybe on my dad's side too, but it's hard to know. Lots of addictions on my dad's side.
Right. Well, addictions can also be a way of dealing with untreated or undiagnosed ADHD. I do like to tell people that if you meet one person with ADHD, you meet one person with ADHD. Yeah. That really is very different. One of the other interviews we've done was with a man who had inattentive ADHD. So, it doesn't all follow gender. So thank you for clarifying that. So anyway, one of the things I'm trying to get to is that you are traveling and house sitting in all of these different places while you're also doing your work as a coach. So that's why I kind of wanted to hear is
I was sitting here. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I've always kind of marched to the beat of my own drum at some point. Once my husband and I divorced, I was 30, and I started realizing that, I was very free-spirited and people didn't understand that. And even I didn't understand that, but I knew that I couldn't stay somewhere where I'm always being held back. And I started doing things that interested me. Like, it interested me to take this. I did this. I just like experiencing different things in life. And last year in 2023, like a couple of months before I gave up my apartment, I sold almost everything I owned. I just kept what I thought I would need. And I took off on a road trip. I'm still road tripping right now. I'm in LA in Koreatown, so I'm not near the wildfires, but they're definitely constantly telling us what's going on in the air quality and all that. And Thursday, I'll be in Costa Rica. And 2 weeks ago, I was in Houston, Texas. And I've just been traveling all year. I do it while pet sitting. I love animals. I love meeting new people. I am more about experiences than stuff. So I decided I was feeling like I was rotting away in my apartment as a grandma constantly. I've only got one grandson and I rarely get to see him because my daughter doesn't like me. And it was becoming depressing for me because I love him so much. So I decided that I would stop punishing myself by sitting there waiting. And I would just accept the fact that, I may not see him very often, but he knows I love him. And I need to go out and experience life and create something new for myself. And of course, in the back of my head, I was like, if I find love on my way, that would be nice, So I have gone to I think I'm on my 23rd or 24th pet sit. I have met so many wonderful people. I've made some great friends along the way. I have also made sure that all those people that I met online in courses and stuff, as I'm in their city, I try to meet them. So I've met a lot of people that were just online friends that are now real friends. And I've just explored and experienced things. And every day I ask myself, so what are you learning today? And what do you really want? I'm really, since 1997, I've been on a quest to find deeper and deeper meaning for freedom and truth. So that's been a really amazing thing. I journal a lot. So one day all my journals can become a memoir. I have boxes of them. Yeah, so it's been good, but this is what I needed to do.
It's interesting. I'm hearing more and more that there are estrangements in families. I'm actually not speaking with my own father, a whole other conversation. He also has ADHD. And, I think that that's a generational change in the way that we deal with family. And like I said, a lot of us are impacted by it. And I really applaud that you decided to keep moving forward rather than let it define you or take you down. And I love what you're doing to really just to take care of you and make your life as good as it can be. I want to take a break because I definitely want to make sure we have time to cover the other part of our conversation. So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about ADHD and its impact on couples and their sexual relationship and how you are able to help them.
Thank you.
Ever wondered why helping a loved one declutter feels like speaking different languages? I did, especially with my mom. It wasn't until I founded Silver Linings Transitions, helping San Diego seniors organize and move for over a decade, that I discovered why. We all experience clutter differently. And for those of us with ADHD, it's a whole other world. If you are listening in the San Diego area and feeling stuck with moving, paperwork, photos, or home organization, Our team at Silver Linings Transitions gets it. We understand ADHD's unique challenges, and we won't just help you get organized. We'll create sustainable systems that finally stick. Schedule a consultation with our team today at 760-522-1624. That's 760-522-1624, or find us at silverliningstransitions.com. We are back with Coach Diane D, where we are now going to explore the second part of our conversation. And this is the part that if you've got little ears tuned in, you need to maybe ask them to leave, or they might learn something. So Coach Diane D, tell me how you got into becoming a certified sexuality coach.
Well, thank you for asking. It was really my clients who guided me there. I always think my clients are my best guide to how I should evolve as a person and as a coach and a therapist. And I moved to an area where there weren't a lot of service providers, so I got all kinds of different clients, and several of them had sexuality issues. One was going through a sex change. One was an escort wanting to get out of that business with a lot of sexual trauma. And they were serious things like that. And I did not feel like I could do the ADHD part and help them with that. But I felt like this is way deeper than what I can do. And I couldn't even find people to really refer them to. And it really was hard. And I thought, you know what? I need to get deeper into the sexuality part, the healing part. I need to be able to help people through all that, because if you can't do that, it's hard to move forward, right? You can't heal.
Right.
So for a couple of years, I explored all kinds of sexuality programs, and I found Jaya and Ian, and I started following them. And a lot of what they were doing was things that I needed. They went really deep, but they made it as fun as possible at some point. There was so many things there. So in 2020, I took that program and certified from it.
And what program is that? Because people who are listening aren't going to know.
Blueprint coach. I'm an erotic blueprint coach certified.
Okay,
so,
erotic blueprint.
You don't understand that. Like, the erotic blueprints were created by Jaya. And if you don't know who she is, because she's been on everything now, because she's written a book about this and she's been on all the talk shows, but she's also in the Netflix series Love, Sex, and Goop. And she shows a little bit of what we do, and it's a lot of embodiment, which is really great for people with ADHD. And it also, like, she has been studying sex, and she's a sexologist and many, many things for 30 years. And she's learned so much because she's really interested in it, right? And so I was really grateful that I took that program, because not only did we learn a lot about sex and embodiment, we learned about healing, we learned about trauma. Like, we have courses to take just about every year on, racism, prejudices. Like, she's very much into diversity and being non-judgmental. And I've really appreciated her and her programs.
So for those of us, for those of our viewers, I definitely have seen that episode on Goop, but can you tell everybody what Erotic Blueprint is?
Yes, happily. So you know how there's the 5 love languages and the 5 languages of apology with Gary Chapman? Well, Jaya has come across like different patterns that she saw in people that she was working with. And so she created the 5 different, they're kind of like the different styles of sex, but she calls them erotic blueprints because they really are. And each one of them is quite different. So if you fit into one specific one, probably you're thinking this is the way that everybody has sex. So if you meet a partner that's different, you might think you're mismatched. Like, I hear a lot of people come see me because they think they're mismatched. You can't enjoy sex together. It was hot at the beginning, but now like they're not comfortable, or it's boring, or like there's all kinds of issues. I get a lot of men who struggle with getting or keeping an erection. And sometimes that's just because of a lack of interest in that partner, or because there's a lack of trust. It's not always like, especially if they've been to the doctor and they don't have ED, like a lot of times there's other issues, emotional or mental issues there. So in my practice, because I'm a certified ADHD coach, I'm also a registered therapist. I brought this in and I've created programs where people first, we start by resolving any unresolved issues, which often is what's killing their sex life, right? If you can get through that, you can usually learn how to have better communication and discussions and resolve just about anything. But a lot of us with ADHD, we're impulsive, we get impatient, it's hard to hear. We don't say everything that we think we said. This is true, or we miss things, that people are telling us because our brain is going. So I always say we need to really slow down and start to listen more. Actions matter, touch matters, so it's all really important. So anyway, and then you have the kinky. And the kinky often is the one that is ashamed and embarrassed of their desires and their needs. So often they won't ask for what they want, but they'll suffer in silence, or they might go find it somewhere else. But there's a lot of taboo around kink, and kink is taboo. That's the whole point. So, so anything you're doing that's not normal for you is kinky. And of course we have psychological kink, we have like physical kink, like bondage and all that. And I just want to say, if you ever want to get into the really deep, heavy bondage stuff, you need a coach to guide you through it, because you can really hurt each other and you can hurt yourself and you can really hate it and regret it. So there's been shows that have come up that show it as this great thing, but I'll tell you something. If there's no consent there, it's not a great thing. You have to be 100% hell yes. Consent is everything in every blueprint. So if you're not sure about something, it's a no. A maybe is a no until you've decided that you know enough that you want to try it and you're a hell yes.
Okay. And then what is the fifth type?
The fifth one is the shapeshifter, which is all the blueprints. And a lot of us with ADHD fall in that category. So you might one day want to make love like for hours in your energy. And then you might want to get into something more massage like the sensual, likes more the harder touch, the massaging and the senses, what they smell, what they taste, what they hear, like every sense matters, so if the music stops, or if there's words to the music and they start to bring you somewhere else, that's all distraction to the sensual. So I'll say, if you're going to use music, don't let it have words. Make sure it's going to keep going. If it stops and it bothers you, you'll have to come and change it and get back in the mood. Everything matters. And I've actually had sensuals. I had one sensual who couldn't stand the smell of sex. So we have to work on different things, because all of the senses matter to the sensual. So depending on what your blueprint is, you need to set that mood, and you need to make sure that you talk to your partner, because communication is everything. And make sure that you're both going to enjoy this. And in the shapeshifter, you could come home one day and you thought your lover was a sensual because they love the massage and all the senses. They eat really slowly. They taste their food, And one day they throw it up against the wall and just do you, Now they're in their sexual, because they're shapeshifters. So they may want to have sex like for a whole week in different blueprints, and you're going, oh my God, like after a couple hours, I'm done. So that's the joy of understanding the erotic blueprints, because then you can see where you need to work on things so that you can match and so that you can both be very satisfied and happy.
So what would your advice be? And you did touch on ADHD and the shapeshifter, to a senior who wants to have a healthy sexual relationship and maybe has ADHD. Let's throw that in there too.
Okay, well, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to tell you the most important thing, okay?
Okay.
Know your boundaries, create them if you need new ones, and do not budge out of your boundaries. We are easily influenced sometimes by somebody paying attention to us or really being sweet to us and stuff. So if you're not sure about something, if you have any kind of confusion, you're not ready to have sex with somebody. Maybe you need to build up the trust. Maybe you need to get to know them better, and always be safe. Be safe. Don't go places where you're private with somebody that you barely know. Go in public places. Use condoms, because I have to say, STIs are huge amongst the crowd over 50. People think because they can't get pregnant that they can go ahead and just have sex as much as they want. And well, as much as that's true, there's a lot of STIs, and we're the biggest group. because a lot of people with ADHD are spontaneous sex, so they don't use condoms. You know, a lot of more people over 50 are engaging in casual sex. And I want to be clear, no judgment, and that's okay, but be safe. Know that you're doing this because you're a hell yes, I really want to do this. I want to have this experience with this person. Because I've heard people who want to have experiences, sexual experiences, but it's not really with this person, but they're the one available. And so we do that. We cross our own boundaries. Have an idea of, and I want to say this too, you know, if you have a list of somebody, rethink your list. What's on it? It should be about the person's character and how they treat you and how you want to treat them, more than, you know, their height and how much money they have and what they're doing, because those things can change.
Yeah, Diane, I really wanted to address couples with ADHD and aging, because I think that we're going to address more of being single in the next episode.
Yes. So couples and aging, I see a lot of people who are feeling like it's gotten boring. Maybe they've been together a long time, sex has gotten boring, or one of them wants to try new things, but they're afraid to talk to the other one, or they get self-conscious about their body. Now we have more wrinkles, more sagging, right? So just remember that your partner is going through this with you, and they're also aging and sagging and all that stuff. So talk about it. Talking about your fears and stuff is really helpful, and your partner can help you and reassure you that they still love you, that you're still beautiful to them. And I'm telling you, men need this too, okay? Because men are self-conscious as well about aging. Then for women, a lot of times the lining of the vagina gets thinner as we get older, and there can be pain where maybe there wasn't any before. And some women, I've had this conversation with women who said it was always painful and they never told their partner. Oh my goodness, that's sad. So talk to your partner, and if there's pain, there might be a good reason for it. You know, like there are pelvic floor therapists who, it's like a physiotherapy, but they can go in and put things back where they belong, because sometimes women, like their bladder can fall, their vagina can fall, like their rectum can fall. I didn't know this before, and I was mortified when it happened to somebody I knew.
What about the boredom? Especially with ADHD, we don't like to be bored. What would your...
And this is where, like, learning your blueprint and expanding it and learning all of, like, sex is like fruit, everybody. You know the fruit that's in your area that you get to eat, right? But do you know there are thousands of fruit in the world? So you may know the sex that you're used to, but there are thousands of other things about sex that you can learn. So I always say, like, you know, if you wanted to just explore the sex life because the rest of your life's pretty good, you can come into my Erotic Blueprint program, and we're just going to deal with sex. It's 8 modules, and I'll put the link in here. If you just wanted to purchase that, you can purchase it independently. But if you wanted to do it working with me and expanding your sex life, we could have a lot of fun. There's a lot of great,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I do want to wrap it up, because I try to keep the show short because of I'm mindful of our audience. But how could someone who has heard you and wants to spice up their sex life find you, Coach Diane D?
Well, I am at, my website is dianedelina.com. That's DIANEDELINA, all lower caps, one word, .com. And I'm at info@dianedelina.com if you want to message me. And you can sign up for my newsletter, which I do give a lot of really great tips and sometimes some information. And I also have a blog that has a lot of more sexuality stuff on there. So go to my website and check it out.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I hope that if you listen today and you want a little more than you're getting from your partner or your sex life, you will find Coach Diane D. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm looking forward to our next conversation when we talk about getting to know our bodies and ourselves when we might not be in a partnership. So thank you for listening to this episode of Grandma Has ADHD, where I am working with you to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.